welcome. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. And also, I just thank you for taking the time to do something for yourself and be on this call with us and take that time for yourself. And I can't emphasize enough on the first day of lockdown how important that is. So well done to you all for being here. So we've got a fantastic panel today. We've got four on our panel. I'm hosting. I am the chair of London Wish, but I also work in personal development and leadership. So the lovely speakers we've got, I will introduce them. And if you like to, I will pin here. So when the recording that I've got just one person on the screen that's speaking, but because we're running this as a meeting format, obviously you've got everyone on the screen. So if you just pin the person that's speaking, and you do that by hovering over their picture, there's three little dots at the top right, should be, you click on that and it allows you to pin video. And then when the person's finished speaking, go back to gallery or unpin them and pin the next speaker. So is that good? Is everybody good with that? Okay, so let me introduce them one at a time. So I'm going to, Sherelle, who is known by a few of you. Sherelle is joining us and she's the Chief Operating Officer of One Housing. So a very experienced, and she'll be sharing her story a little bit with us. And then we've got Jessica Carr, and Jessica is a project manager from Hackney, London Borough of Hackney. And again, she'll be sharing a story. We've got very different stories and different approaches and at different stages of career. We thought that would help have a variety. And then we've got, I'm going to say the lovely Maria, I can't help myself, the lovely Maria O'Brien from Royal Borough of Greenwich. And let me just read, she's a co-coordinator of Regen and Bids. I think that's the right title, Marie. And then we've also, so they're all lovely. We've got the lovely Alex Galvitz. Alex is an international speaker, keynote speaker, storyteller, all-round brilliant person. And so she'll be sharing her story as well. So I'm going to share my screen because I just want to kick us off with some thinking, and I'm going to share this at the wrong place, but here we go.
Hello.
Do this. So there we go. There's our speaker, our panelists for today. I just want you to think about this. There's Sigmund Freud, father of all psychotherapy, and Will Schwartz, another psychotherapist, said that we needed three things to thrive as human beings. And Freud said what we need is belonging, and that's essential for us to thrive. That's lovely. My screen show's decided to go on. So a sense of belonging is essential to us in thriving. A sense of mastery or expertise is also an essential part of our growth and our need for thriving, what we need to fulfill. The last picture there is significance. And I'm guessing you're all on here because that's important to you. You want to have some significance. And I think as women, we tend to shy away a little bit from really speaking out about that, about wanting to be significant. But it is part of our need as human behavior for our growth. And I think what is in conflict when we come to striving for our significance and speaking up is we have this sense of belonging, and we feel like others might judge us or cast us out, or we might look stupid. So there's various things, and I think that's sort of attached to our need to belong. So if we go through the session today, think about that balance between needing to belong and achieving your significance. And if we think about mastery, what I'm going to say is that you are the expert of your lived experience. There is no one else in the world that's more expert than you. And wherever you open, you share your thoughts, you ask your questions, and you speak up, you are the expert. And that's what I'd say. Never ever doubt that. And if we are ever going to really have a diverse workforce and we're going to have inclusion, it's that needs to be recognized. Your lived experience is unique and it's worth sharing. So you are always the expert in that. So they're the things that I would like you to think about. For some reason, my slide now won't let me click on, so let me stop sharing. Technical issues and all that, and I'll start again. So what I want you to do, the next slide, this one here, can you just get out your phones and photograph that? So you've got that for later.
Why is that not working?
We're going to come back and think about this, and this is all about constellation work and our systems. So it's a coaching experiment. So hopefully you got that. There we go, back on it. We can put it back up later if you haven't got it, but try and capture that. Okay. So I'm going to stop there, and then I'm going to hand over to our panelists. And the other thing I'm going to say to you is when you're on here and you're listening, one of the key elements about being able to speak up is the ability to listen. Listen to self and listen to others in the room. Because what happens as the nerves build, we start to shut down and we stop listening. So I'm going to encourage you to really be present today. Make notes if you need to come back and reflect on, but try and stay as open as possible to the person that's speaking and really listen to their experience. So I haven't told them what order they're going in, so I'm going to ask Sherelle if you would like to start us off.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you doing? So in terms of my experience, in terms of finding your voice, I would say for most, in fact, I would say up until about 5 years ago, I was too scared to speak. In fact, there are many a time I've been asked to do things where I'd say no, not because I couldn't, but because I was just frozen with fear of just in case it went wrong, just in case I sounded silly, or just in case I let myself down or other people. And, you know, until somebody said to me, what's the worst thing that could happen? Literally, what is the worst thing that could happen? And I was like, well, I would be embarrassed. But even embarrassment for me didn't sum up in a word what I felt when I said no. Literally, it was physical. You know, I tell people, you know, just on the call before you got on, I was talking about I was sweaty. I could hear my own voice. I could think that people could see me being the, what's the word? The fake person that I was trying to be. Because I think about most of my career, I tried to pretend to be other people. So I have in this mind, in my mind's eye, about what a leader looks like and how they dressed and how they looked. And many of people would know the leaders or the managers that I've had in my career. And I wanted to be just like them. Dress like them, talk like them, be like them. But guess what? I wasn't being them. And therefore I felt worse because I was falling short of being them. Somebody said to me, what's the worst that could happen? Then, you know, I was stuck. And then also another sensible person said to me, if you allow other people to fill in the gaps for you, then the story they tell is not your own. Because I would leave meetings and I would leave rooms screaming in my head about the thing that somebody said that was not true, not factual, or misrepresented what I had agreed or what I thought I may have said in a whisper. I tell you, like, I'd have battled myself, like, as you walk out thinking, first, but the nerves kicked in. And actually, because I'm naturally an introvert, it was just, what's the word? I had to dial up energy, which I didn't know that I had. And physically, I felt exhausted when I started to speak. Because when you are so, what's the word, nervous of something and you do it, you have to remind yourself that your body's in a fight or flight position. Physically, your body's thinking, that's it, I'm going to die here. But I now recognize your brain as a computer. you need to teach it positive things about yourself. We're very quick as women to remind ourselves about all the things that don't go right for us, or the things that might go wrong for us, or the things that have gone wrong for us. But if I was to ask the audience to put their hand up now, how many people here today or this last week said, job well done? We just don't do that enough. So with finding my voice, another thing that I had to find was positive, data, information about myself, which I could say, well, here's an example where I said something and the world didn't end. Here's an example where I said something and the room didn't laugh at me. Or here's an example where I said or spoke today and actually I could see people nodding a little bit about what I'm going to say. So you or us, we as women, need to find an inner strength to battle ourselves. Because if I look at the most people that I've had as managers, or people that I think haven't been on my side, I can tell you for a fact, they have been less challenging than I have been to myself. And when you start writing down what people say to you versus what you actually say to yourself, that's another example of where you can demonstrate that finding your voice is not just about speaking up, it's about quieting some of the things that you say to yourself. Because I walk out of meetings or I walk out one-to-ones and think, oh my gosh, they don't like me. Oh my gosh, that was so harsh. Oh my gosh, the world's going to end. But when I write down what was said to me versus what I thought, or what I write down about what I thought somebody implied, it's very different to sometimes what I hear or what I have said myself. So to get your point across or to feel as though you can, we have to be brave. And bravery starts with practice. So another coach said to me, as an athlete doesn't start a race cold. So what are we doing to practice being brave? What do you do in your day to say a word or to just be present in a meeting that you can say, I was there? And to me, that was literally what I did. I was like, yeah, I'm Sherelle, I'm here. It was that sometimes small, but the idea of speaking up in front of people that I thought was more, established or brilliant than me was just horrendous. So a sense of self and a sense of improving self starts with being kind to self. So my message also today is around, I talk about positive words to yourself. I mean that in a genuine way, where if you still, like I do, suffer with nerves or are very critical of yourself, write down those words. And at the end of the week, I cross most of them out, because I might start feeling that way, but how many of those words did I actually deliver in terms of my failure or not doing what I committed to do, or thinking that they all laughed at me, or that report wasn't good enough, or that conversation with a member of my team didn't go so well. So we, as I would say, need to find ways or find activities where you can actually measure or prove to yourself or help yourself, like an athlete, get better. So turning up to a meeting and practicing in advance, or knowing people around the room, saying hi. I've got so many little tricks, and as I said, I'm a chief operating officer now, and there's so many tricks that I still use with myself to get in that room and be present. Because it's not just about faking it till you're making it. You've got to have like scaffolding. You've got to have armor around yourself to hold yourself up and be present, and to try to be in the room, and know that you've got fallback in terms of the things and the tricks I've got for myself is my scaffolding. So kindness, positive affirmation in terms of talking to yourself in a positive way, treating your brain as a computer in terms of reinforcing the things that don't go so well, but also generally writing things down, pros and cons, or positives and negatives, and being, kind, and crossing out the things that don't really relate anymore to where you were. And every year you will find that list gets longer and better, because it comes with practice. So this is not overnight. I've been telling you, I've been doing this for years and I'm still not finished. So and I can tell you example after example, but you have to find ways to be generous with yourself, because if you manage people, you work with people, we give out compliments to people all of the time. We say a job well done, or don't worry about that, it's okay. How many times have you checked yourself and said that to yourself? So when finding your voice, I mean finding your inner voice, and that voice in your head, which I call my radio. It's a bit like an audio book. I say it to now. I say, Miss Brown, not today. I really have a conversation with myself, because sometimes I'm like, those nerves are good nerves, are going to make me cautious or make me think. And I say, thanks, Miss Brown. Or another day I say, oh, not today, not today, you know? So you have to find or learn to be friends with that voice in your head and learn to be, what's the word? Not in control of it, but to use it in the way, because you are using it like true data to help you. Because fear is a good thing at times. Being nervous is a natural mechanism of it gets us out of danger. So you have to know that sometimes it's there to help you, but the majority of the times, this is not life or death. So write down how many times you felt that nerve and actually went through it to teach your brain that not all fear is bad fear. So it's a bit like the Tracy, that the poster that went up. A lot of the things are about survival, and all these things that are inbuilt into us are around survival. So we need to teach our ways to survive in the workplace and to survive at home and to survive in all instances where we are just kind to ourselves. So I'll leave it there, Tracy.
Thank you. That's lovely. Thanks, Joelle. That's some fantastic advice. Thank you. So I am now, so I should have said, explain to you all to start. We're going to, each panelist is going to share their experience, and then we're going to have space for you to ask questions. So I'm going to ask Marie if she will talk next and share her experience.
Okay. Hi everyone, so my name's Marie and I'm 41. I have 2 children and I work for the Royal Borough of Greenwich, and it's really nice to see you all. I'm here today to share with you a journey that I've recently been on and how I found my voice. I've always been a quite shy and unconfident person. However, the last 6 months have changed that for me. I was approached by my assistant director in regards to attending a leadership course. The purpose being, I know he thought it would be a very good thing for me to do, particularly to build up my confidence a bit more. I didn't really know what to expect from the course, but I never expected I would go on the journey I have. I remember the first session, I felt so nervous. I could hardly breathe. Being in a room, albeit virtually, with people I didn't know, and being asked to speak up was my worst nightmare. My fears have always been I would sound silly, say something wrong, and come to think of it, why was I even there? I soon came to realise that the sessions were my safe place. I could say anything and it would not go further than the room. I could have an opinion on a subject, I could cry and no one would judge. As part of the course, we had to complete a montage on the type of leader we thought we were. Me being me started overthinking it straight away, panicking, particularly as I did not see myself as a leader. I managed it and was actually blown away how I could be described down to a T by Tracy, just by her looking at a few pictures. She said I was organised, I care for others, lacking confidence, I don't take risks, I'm sensitive, like structure, and I'm actually a bit of a perfectionist. As we progressed through the course, I started to feel more comfortable with myself. I wasn't getting that feeling of dread when I was asked to speak. Everyone made me feel so welcome. I was being told I brought a lovely energy into the room. I was really starting to enjoy it. Discovering I had a purpose was a massive thing for me. It was a really good feeling. I never thought about it before, as my lack of confidence would often feel I had no purpose at all. I've learned I need to face the fear. Everyone gets nervous, but you just have to face up to it and get on with it. I would never really speak in meetings or ask questions as I was afraid people would think I was silly. I felt like I had no presence and wasn't important. But what's going to happen if I say the wrong thing? Nothing. I'm still the same person in that meeting, and it's still Marie sitting there. I'm learning not to be afraid, but to be curious and just ask questions and it will be okay. I'm slowly starting to now trust in myself. A huge eye-opener for me was that I definitely do not take enough time in my life for just me. I'm always so busy looking after and worrying about everyone else. The kids, home, football club, the list goes on. By doing this, I suppose I'd kind of forgotten who I really am, and I'm slowly finding that person again. I know now that I don't need to be doing everything that needs to be done. It doesn't reflect bad on me if I ask someone for help, and I don't have to do everything. A very lovely, wise woman once said to me, lighten up and chill out. which I'm definitely trying. I feel a completely different person to the one who came to the first session. I know I still have a lot to work on, but this has helped me massively. I now have confidence and belief in my own abilities and skills. I've overcome nervousness and have learned my opinion is valuable and wanted. I'm so proud of my achievements, and this has had a positive impact on work and self. I'm so proud of being able to deliver my work and key projects, and I also can't believe I managed it in the middle of a worldwide pandemic, homeschooling, sharing IT, working on a huge bid and moving house. It's been really lovely to speak to you today, and should any of you get the opportunity to attend a leadership course or any kind of coaching to help you find your voice, I would highly recommend it. Thank you.
Oh, I want to cry now. Do I get emotional? It's so lovely. God, well done. That's just beautiful story and very moving. So well done you. So I shall move on before I start flooding, and I'm going to ask if I cry again now, because Jessica, I'm going to ask you to share your story.
Hi everyone, my name's Jess. Thank you for having me today. I work at Hackney Council as a project officer in housing strategy and policy, and I'm going to take this opportunity to share my story about how I'm learning to find my voice and how to unlearn years of conditioning that told me not to be my authentic self. So I grew up in a small working class town in the northeast, and I was brought up around the "it's just the way it is" mantra, where casual sexism, racism and homophobia were fed to me at quite a young age. Unfortunately, this was normalised for many of my peers and for my parents when growing up too. The place and the environment that we grow up has a massive influence on every aspect of our life, including our career choices, and it informs the way in which we see the world, which in my case was quite narrow when growing up. It's been a massive revelation for me to learn that I can be my own person and have my own views and my own voice, and can disagree with my dad, whose word that I constantly took for gospel truth on everything. It took me a while to overcome the idea that men are naturally more intelligent than women and have a comprehensive knowledge on the world that I would never be able to possess, which meant that I relied on the world from their perspective as a default. I never engaged in debates or political discussion with the men in my family because I always felt the incomparable need to know absolutely everything about a subject, otherwise I'd make a massive fool of myself, and then that would prove that boys are more intelligent than girls, and I felt that that whole responsibility was on my shoulders at like age 16. I think that's where the imposter syndrome feeling kind of started for me and still shows now. So when I reflect back on my time in school, for as long as I can remember, I've avoided any situation where I might have to publicly speak out loud. The thought of being publicly vulnerable was just far too much for me. So instead of focusing in class, I would be focusing on hiding my sweaty hands and an anxious mess. And I would leave the classroom and go to the toilet for about 20 minutes or walk around the school grounds just so that I could get away with not speaking. I absolutely despise seminars and debates in school and through university. I'm sure there's many people who can share my experience in avoiding having to speak in big groups, but I can definitely say that it's affected my decision-making skills, my self-confidence, and definitely had a negative impact on the way that I saw myself. So I saw myself as someone who didn't really belong in leadership, and I couldn't relate to leadership because I didn't feel that I possessed the presence or the confidence to think for myself, never mind to think for other people. Although I have recently learned on a leadership development course with Tracy that leadership isn't necessarily about thinking for other people. I was actually really confident once in school and enjoyed being the centre of attention in my more junior years. But when I matured and was exposed to what can happen to girls when they're put on the spot and shamed for being stupid, I never wanted to put myself in that position. In my experience, as I'm sure for many other people as well, school was a breeding ground for bullying and shaming and preying on people's vulnerabilities. The seemingly outdated notion that girls who have loud voices, bold opinions, and strong feelings are too much and unattractive was fed to me in all directions from a young age. And this made me learn not to trust my personality and instead focus on being polite and modest, which I was constantly praised for growing up. My teacher even once told my mum that they don't have to worry about me because I'm well-mannered, so I'll be fine. And experiences like this really reinforced my understanding of my place and who I thought I should be. I think that acceptance is one of the biggest things that young girls struggle with, because nobody really teaches you how to accept yourself. It's more about being accepted by others, certainly in my experience. So thinking about what's changed for me as I've grown up and having reflected on all of this, I've definitely gained a deeper understanding of why it is that I struggle so much to voice my thoughts and ask questions in public spaces. And I've realized that my understanding of the world is at the center of my own development. So listening to female experiences has had a massive impact and has answered a lot of questions for me, and has helped me find the value and learn to be my authentic self. The triple jeopardy of what that feels like, of being female, being 24 and having a northern accent, has definitely affected my confidence and sense of belonging in leadership spaces already just within the first few years of my working life. But I'm determined to be the leader that my younger self needed by embracing my full authenticity and accepting that I don't need to know absolutely everything about everything just to earn the right to speak up. I'll instead continue to value curiosity, to take responsibility for my own development, try and ask more questions, and focus on trying to broaden the access to inclusive leadership. Thanks for listening.
Thanks. Brilliant. Well done, Jess. That was great. Really good. Thank you. So it's Alex. Over to you to share your story.
Thank you. So moving, these talks, because I personally know these ladies. So my story began in August of 2015. I had achieved the corporate dream that I had set out to achieving, that by the time I was 30, I was going to have this high-flying city job, I was going to be in a leadership position, I was going to be earning lots of money, and I was going to be traveling internationally with my nice designer clothes. And I got that by the time I was 24. I had just jumped from a company to a competitor to head up all of their training and development globally at the age of 24, and found myself in a leadership position very, very young. And I kind of had like a very traditional view of what leadership was. It was very hierarchical, it was very kind of power dynamic driven, and that came from my own sort of background. And so for me, that's sort of what I kind of went into it with. And being this sort of very young leader in a financial services company, I felt like I needed to act in certain ways, especially that my background was that I was an ethnic minority. I was the first generation to go to university. I grew up in a council flat. I came from a low-income single-parent household. So people like me don't end up in leadership positions at 24. And I had a huge amount of imposter syndrome, a huge amount of stress and anxiety of how was I going to perform and how was I going to be able to deliver what was a very kind of important role in the business. I was incredibly shy initially, and I always sort of have been since a young age. And I hadn't really learned to come out of my shell until I read a book and watched a TED Talk by a lady called Susan Cain, who talked about introversion. And all of a sudden, a lot of things finally made sense. It wasn't that I was necessarily shy, or it wasn't necessarily that I didn't enjoy mingling with people or talking to people. It was just that I gained my energy from being on my own, and actually I could talk to people, and it wasn't a question of just being shy. So when I got that job, when I did that transition, a lot of people asked me, why did you take that job as head of learning and development, Alex? And it's an interesting reason, and exactly the thing that led me to finding my voice was that I hated, and I mean I hated with a passion, public speaking. And so I thought it would be a great idea, what on earth possessed me to think that, to take this role as head of training and development, which required maybe 80% of delivering and presenting, to be able to get over the fear of presenting. And very quickly, my boss realized that I had this huge fear around, public speaking. And he said, go and take a course, come back, because this is going to be a huge part of your role. And so I went to this 2-day speaking course called the Speaking Adventure. And I really felt like this was the first time that I learned and almost deconstructed, and in a very safe environment, express myself and showed people who I was. And it came from a place of authenticity. And I learned how to speak with a very small group in a very safe environment before going back into the business and sharing my story and being able to present. And the more that I did that, especially that a lot of it was involved in my role, the more I started to get over it. So the more I confronted that fear, the more I also grew in confidence as well, in terms of realizing actually it's not as scary as I thought. The world isn't going to implode, or the floor's not going to swallow me up after it's happened. And actually, I kind of like the little buzz that I have after it, and the adrenaline and a little bit of the, the feedback and the compliments, etc., was giving me a bit of a boost. So I was starting to enjoy something that I didn't really enjoy initially. Now, a second thing happened whilst I was in that job is that I began blogging on LinkedIn and sharing ideas around things that were important to me. I had come, as I said, from a background where I didn't really have access to anyone to tell me, do this with your career, or don't do this, or think about that, and this is what worked for me. And so I wanted to be the person that I didn't have. And so I started creating content for students and graduates around things that I wish I'd known when I was their age. And that began as a blog and slowly grew. And over time, I realized, actually, I don't really want to be in this corporate job anymore. After a huge amount of stress and burnout, some depression, ended up in therapy, I decided, actually, this isn't for me. I'm going to leave. And the day that I left, I wrote a post on LinkedIn that talked about my journey in the city and why I was leaving, and that sometimes it takes getting to where you want to be to realize it's not where you're meant to be. And that post went viral, and 80,000 people around the world read it. And off the back of that, I continued blogging and started my career, interestingly, as a speaker, amongst other things. It was quite interesting to realize that I'd taken something that I really didn't like and I hated and I was super scared of, and turned it into something that I now have been doing for a living for the past 3.5 years. And so I continue to blog on LinkedIn, sharing bits of my story and being more vulnerable and open, especially that I had grown up in a family and in a culture that vulnerability is a weakness. And this was, again, a huge turning point in terms of finding my voice. And the more that I started to understand who I was and what was important to me, and almost finding myself, the more I started to find my voice. So I think in terms of, if you're going on that journey, try and find opportunities to learn more about who you are and what's important to you in order to know what you want to say and to who to say it to. In the December of the 2017 that I left my corporate job, I got named LinkedIn Top Voice for the UK, and the year after as well, ranking me in the top 12 most influential writers on LinkedIn. And I think that's important to share, because I wasn't sharing or writing things that were important to me that were absolutely groundbreaking. It was just things that I was really passionate about, things like mental health, things like what it's like to work in the city, and all these experiences that I felt like we didn't have enough discussions of in the corporate world, that I felt like we needed to have. And so if people weren't ready to have those conversations, I was ready to be that first person to initiate those conversations. So what I would say to you is find opportunities to express your voice whenever you get the opportunity, because practice is great. I would say don't be too worried about, next day I'm going to find my voice. It is a long process. I would definitely say I'm still finding my voice and still figuring out what's important to me, and what I want to speak about changes as I evolve as a person and grow as a person. So don't be worried and don't be fixed. And I feel like, having done this for now 5 years, I've realized that, a lot of people say, oh, but I don't have a story, or I don't know what I want to say. But the truth is that we all have a story to say, and somewhere out there, someone needs to hear it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Excellent. Okay. So that's all our panelists, and really varied. So hopefully the stories resonated with you. I'm just going to go back and share screen again. So I'm going to go back to that, and then we're going to have some questions. But just going to come back to this. And I know this is not for us to do now, but I just want you to think, you've just heard all those stories. And this peacock is from Constellation Coaching. And all of you have this system around that's built you made you for who you are. So both Marie and Jessica and Alex have talked about their lived experience and how it shaped them. So if I can get this to work, it'd be amazing, wouldn't it? No, it won't work. Let's just get out there. I'll share it like this because I've got control then. So this is the peacock. So if you've got a picture, you just need to draw it. So when you come off of this session, when you get some time to really reflect, this is your system. These are the things that make us up: our families, school days, where we've worked, our friendships, our community. These all shape us. And these little points here are your beliefs that you've taken from the system. So my dad is always right. As a child, I should be seen and not heard. My dad thought the sun shone out of my rear end. Well, you know, good things and bad. So these are the things that have shaped you. And what you'll find in here, if you fill this map in, you'll get some clues into things that will help you and propel you forward, and things that will hold you back. So my example would be, as a family, I would always get up and dance and everyone would clap and tell me I was marvelous. So for me, that's a good thing, you know, that's good to perform. But also in my family, my mum would say to me at times, "Oh, Tracy, you take up so much airtime, you need to be quiet." So that when I'm speaking, doing public speaking, I get that voice in my head and I think, oh my gosh, I'm boring everyone, I've got to shut up. So it's something that I've got from my family that sits in my system. So I would encourage you to map your systems out, and coming back to the start from Sherelle, what Sherelle was saying about paying attention to self, paying attention to that inner voice. It comes from these systems. So really pay attention to what's happening for you. And then also for what the others have said about what direction you want to move into. Why am I here? What's my significance? What impact do I want to have? And how do I sort of overcome some of those fears in order to have the impact I want? And you know, small pebbles make big ripples. And it's this, just do the little things, practice some questions that you can ask, make it simple. It doesn't have to be hard. One foot in front of the other. And so that's my encouragement to you. So let's have some questions, and we'll come back to, I'm back to the audience in a little bit later. I'm going to ask some things of you. So we're now at 1:10. So do we have questions? And feel free, if you stick your hand up, and then I can try and come to you. I've got 63, so I can't see everybody on the call. Does everybody know how to stick their hand up? Or do you want to put it in the chat box? Is that easier for us? Let's just see. I have got one question, so I'm going to ask the question that was sent in pre this webinar. So how to control fight and flight responses when speaking up, simultaneously articulate what I want to say properly. So it sounds to me that question is that the fight, flight and freeze is going on, and at the same time that's all clamping and overwhelming me, I'm speaking. So there's these two things. So would anybody like, Sherelle, I'm going to come to you for that one.
The amount of times, let me tell you, that I've been frozen on the spot thinking, oh my God, you know, like when, you know, we watch a film and the spotlight is on you and you think that everyone can see you like sweating and nervous. And really and truly, I'm just like, oh my gosh, how am I going to cope here? I would say, if in doubt, the best thing you can do is say either, can I have a moment, or I don't know, or I'm nervous. You need to speak your truth in that moment, because the hiding of it, I'm telling you, it comes out in ways that your voice is croaking, you are physically showing it, and also you're training yourself that experience is horrible. So any way what you can do to get a moment, and I think the honesty piece is where I get my moment in saying, oh my gosh, I'm really nervous, to make a joke of it, or, oh, wow, talk about asking me a difficult question. I bring the audience into my dilemma, because the one thing about most people is they are kind. And if they can relate to how you are feeling, there are other people that will go, oh, I thought it was only me. Oh my goodness, you've got this. The encouragement that you will get will come from sometimes very strange places, because trust me, sometimes I'm thinking, I thought you didn't like me. But, you know, just try, and I know it's hard, I know it sounds really, from a place of nervousness or a place of fear, it sounds like the most dramatic thing that you're going to do. But just say, I need help, or I don't know, or this is horrible. And then try then to compose yourself to then to speak your truth. Because the more you don't do it, the more your body, your brain, your computer learns that this is real fear. And this something really might horrible happen because you've saved yourself. So just like the athlete, you need to teach good data to yourself around what, you know, how to manage fear and how to treat it as something which propels you. Because some of the best conversations I've had has come from a place of being really, really scared. And then telling my truth and people looking and thinking, oh my gosh, you actually said that for real. And that my inbox is like, oh my gosh, you're full of integrity. Oh my gosh, you're so authentic. If they knew where that came from, I tell you, they would just be traumatized by how I felt in the moment. So I tell myself and remind myself that to get to the good stuff, sometimes you need to be brave, and getting through that hard, you know, fear is the bit where all the sweets and the joyfulness are. Another good trick that I do is every time I get through something which is horrible, I treat myself to something lovely. And normally that's a cake, but it's a sense of, I made it.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Joelle. I'm just going to add something about a mantra. So you can design your own mantra that, and Alex is nodding, so I guess we're on the same page. Do you want to say something about it?
Yeah, I mean, interestingly, it sort of links something to what Cheryl said, is that when I did this 2-day workshop, they got us to create a mantra. And initially I wanted mine to be, what's the worst that can happen? But as I wrote it down, I thought, but there's already a negative connotation by using the word worst. So now my mantra, and it has been since I started, is what's the best that can happen? Because honestly, it's not as bad as we make it believe, or what our brain makes us believe. So for me, it's all about, before I go onto stage or to do something where I'm speaking, it's always thinking about, you know, what's the best that can happen, and visualizing. I do a lot of visualizing of how it's going to go, and I even imagine people like smiling and laughing and, you know, being in a positive way, that you know, hopefully that's the way it's going to go.
Brilliant. Thanks, Alex. I had a lady on one of my courses that her mantra was, where before she was thinking, I'm overweight, I'm useless. That was her panic voice. And she reworked that, I'm good, and good is good enough. And so even when she was on a podium giving a speech to hundreds of people, she had a moment of wobble, and she just took a breath and went, I'm good, and good is good enough.
Can I add, Tracy? My mechanism is I tell myself, find a way to find light to this situation. It's a bit like toothache in the dark. So when you go to bed and you've got a horrible pain, like you think, oh my gosh, I've got toothache. When I wake up in the morning, my face is going to be out here, because you're like, oh my gosh, it looks so horrible. But when you turn the light on, when you've got a problem, you recognize how the scale of it is not what you thought in your head. So when I feel that way, it's like, what could I do? Who could I talk to? How can I help myself to shine a little bit of light on this problem? That's how you get through those dark moments.
Lovely, thank you. So we've got 3 questions. I've got Abby wants to ask Alex something. We've got Ronnie. Do you want to come off mute and ask? Shall I unmute you? Oh no. No, I can only ask you to unmute for some reason.
Right. Yes. What if you're not shy, but you think maybe you need to rein it, because I'm not shy, but you need to rein it in, and I'm full of enthusiasm, and I'm not submissive or anything like that, and I might come over too much. Do you still think the course, 2-day workshop or something like that, might be good for me to try and contain it and calm it down and not come over so too much?
Yeah. I mean, okay, should I answer that? I absolutely do, Ronnie. And because what's happening is probably you have a sensitivity to not being taken seriously, or, you know, so there's probably a sensitivity. So actually just some time investigating when you get compelled, and and understanding your own purpose, what impact you want to have. So being really clear, why am I here? What difference do I want to make? What am I going to back? What horse am I going to back here? And what's the most important thing? So it's about prioritizing, I think, and just connecting with your sensitivities is that need to be heard, that might get overwhelming. So I think so that's my answer to that one. Hopefully that's helpful. And then we've got Jacqueline and Abby. Jacqueline, do you want to ask your question?
Hello, yeah, just wanted to say thank you for fantastic presentations. I learned a lot from each of them. Sorry, I've got a bit of background noise going on. I've got builders in, so I hope it's not making too much distraction. But the question I wanted to ask has partly been answered, but just about a mantra that you might have, or an exercise routine you might do to sort of build yourself up before your talk. And anybody share anything around that if they do?
I mean, we could. I think Marie and Jessica, you've just done this talk, so can you just share a little bit of what you did?
Yeah, I think I just tried to take myself back to the sessions, Tracy, and just did a little bit of breathing, grounding myself right in my stomach, just trying to breathe it out, really. I'm still really nervous, but I did it.
And Alex, do you want to talk about that exercise Marie's just talked about?
Yeah, I was about to say that. So for me, it's really important that I get my breathing right before I go on, and it's not even right, but it's that I ground myself. And so one way of doing that is to put your hand just on the bottom of your belly button, just underneath it, and just take really slow, deep breaths. And just focus your attention just underneath your belly button. And an alternative as well is that if I just put this down here, like just in your rib cage, just putting your hand there and then just breathing into that slowly as well is another technique. And what it does is it just calms your nervous system down, and it brings your attention to the place that you're touching and helps you ground yourself before you do anything, especially if you're feeling the nerves.
Thank you, Alex. Jess?
I would love to say that I was doing calming exercises and breathing exercises, but all of that just went out the window. I was very nervous, but I think I kind of told myself that if what I have to say can help one person, then that's enough to do it anyway. And that just gave me like instant confidence to carry on and just get on with it. So
brilliant. I think that's so lovely. So, and that's quite similar to me. It's like I go to open heart. How can I open my heart to the people that are in front of me, and what do they need from me? And that switches the attention, and so I think that's such a lovely technique. Just what do they need? It's not about me. It's about what they need. So good switch. Thank you. And then Abby, if you're still on, because I think your camera's off. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, hi everyone. I think that's been quite inspirational. Don't know if you can see me. But yeah, my question really was that, I mean, I struggle with blogs, and I have written once or twice before, and people have actually given me compliments, but for some reason I just freeze, and it's like no one's gonna like it, no one wants to read it. You know, I'm not really good enough. They're going to think it's not fluent, it's not storytelling, it has to be perfect. I wondered, Alex, if you've got any tips for me on that?
Yeah, I mean, the amount of documents that are probably in draft versions in people's folders is massive. And, you know, I went through that fear as well when I first started putting stuff out there. I think exactly what Jess was actually just saying, in terms of as long as I put something out there and it helps one person, then I know that my job is done. I think that's always been my way of looking at it. It's also, for me, especially now, so I've got a newsletter called From Trauma to Triumph. And for me, now when I write that, for me, it's about that it's something for me. that I'm doing for me personally. I think it's a very cathartic thing to write my story and my struggles. And what, you know, if someone enjoys it and if someone likes it and comments it, like, that's great, it's a bonus, but it's not the reason that I'm doing that specific piece of content. So that's another kind of way of looking at it. And I, you know, for me, like, I help people do this for a living, and I always say to them, like, click publish and then run down the road and hide for a bench, like under a bench for an hour, and then come back and see how it's doing. And, you know, I think it's good to remind people that, you know, even people like me that have, you know, 40,000 following on LinkedIn, we all started with zero. You know, we all started from where you're starting, and we got there because we were consistent and because we were open and we showed people who we are. And the right people would gravitate towards your story and what you're sharing, because that naturally happens. So don't worry that the other thing that I just wanted to note is that you would be surprised how many people are reading but not engaging. So they might not like it, they might not comment on it, they might not share it, but I kid you not, I had so many messages from ex-colleagues that I bump into that they're like, oh my God, I love reading your stuff. And like, this is the CEO of a company I used to work for. And I'm just like, you have time to read this? And it's, you know, I actually don't speak about anything business related. The stuff I talked about, like I mentioned, are very stigmatized issues. You know, very recently I talked about like coming out of survival mode. Last week I talked about like having a miscarriage, and this is all on LinkedIn. So, you know, I would say take those baby steps towards being vulnerable and open publicly, but don't be afraid to do it, because there's definitely room for more voices, especially in the UK on LinkedIn.
Yeah. I think that, so the judgment piece, pay attention to the judgments you're making. They get in your way all the time. They get in your way of embracing others, ideas, and yourself more than, you know, if I've got someone that I'm working with and I feel you can tell when they speak, and Alex and I work together, and the judgments get in your way. And if you can lose anything, it's just actually reacting to judgments. That's all they are. So, you know, don't judge yourself. And also, the other thing someone said to me once, do you really think you're that important? I was like, yes, I do, yes. So, you know, don't get over yourself. It's a bit like me saying to Mary, lighten up, isn't it? Sometimes it's just some basic stuff that works for us. Okay, do we have any other questions? Any burning questions from anybody? Sandra, do I see your hand go up? No. Okay, should we go back to my slides and see what we're going to pull things to a close? So remember that small pebbles make big ripples. Take those steps. So we're looking, just on an aside, we obviously now we've been a few months in running webinars and things, and we're looking to plan as Wish for our 2021 programme, London Wish, and we'd really like to get people's opinions. So hopefully you're all going to be happy for me to ask if we can contact you and just get some thoughts from you about how we should scope out next year and what events you would like to see us doing next year. So maybe you can just put a thumbs up or something and just say if you're happy for us to do that, and we will contact you and get some of your views, which would be very useful. And another way to get your voice heard. So this is our panel. These are our LinkedIn profiles. So I'm going to again ask you get your, Marie, I'm going to make you do your LinkedIn profile at some stage, but so the rest of you could just photograph that and link in with us, because as Alex is the expert, she's just marvelous to watch her write. So you'll get lots of feedback from her. I put a little bit on, so you'll see what I write as well. And we love to see what you're writing. So please link in with us, tag us in post if you'd like, and we can share things. So do that. The other thing I've got there is a telephone number, and it's my telephone number. And I thought, I had this little idea, because I have them now and again, that we could do a WhatsApp group. And from the 60 odd people that have been on this call, and if we did a WhatsApp group that just for a couple of months, that all you do on that WhatsApp group is say, I spoke up today. I spoke up, it was a bit uncomfortable, but I did it and I feel good. Or I did a talk, I asked to lead a piece, any feedback into the group. So the group's there not for feedback, not for us to respond to, but just like a way for you to say out loud, I am moving in the direction I want to. So you might join a course, you might get a coach, just pop it on to the LinkedIn. So that's my number. So just contact me and tell me that you want to be in the WhatsApp group. Did I say WhatsApp? Yeah, the WhatsApp group. And then I'll just make a big group for us for, say, 2 to 3 months, that we can just keep each other honest and say when we've spoken up. So it's a little watch for us. So that's that one. And then I'm just, before we finish, just to let you know our next events. We've had some brilliant events. This event was built on the back of an event Gemma Brown, who's a fantastic coach, did for us last month, I think. So about building on career. And our next event, the Wish South Easter running on the 18th of November. So you can sign up for that now. And that's all about visualizing where you want to be and having the confidence to get there. And then we're together as London again on the 3rd of December. That would be lovely to see people there. We're going to do that as breakout rooms. So it really is about celebrating the end of lockdown and then getting together and just really connecting with each other. So that's happening from us. So that just leaves me to just wrap it up. So I'm going to ask for a word from each of our panelists, just how they feel, and then maybe a couple of people from the audience can say something. So Sherelle.
How do I feel, Tracy? I feel like I survived another hurdle. Just generally, you know, when you're surrounded by people that have similar or shared experiences, don't underestimate how, you know, giving yourself time to do these things is important. So whether you go on the program or whether you do more of coming to these Wish events or speaking at work, you know, an hour or half an hour or 10 minutes for self is really, really important. And although I've been a part of the panel, I've been also engaged in everyone else's story. So I've given myself today the hour. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Marie.
Relief, but also really proud of myself, actually. When you said there was 63 people on here, I thought, wow. And I just want to say thank you to everybody for listening. You know, it was really kind of you to come on and listen to my story. So thank you.
Thank you, Marie, for making me cry. Jessica.
One word would be supported, but also feeling brave. So thank you for giving me this opportunity and being kind.
Thank you. Alex?
I just want to personally say it was wonderful to listen to Marie and Jessica, because I was co-facilitating with Tracy the program that they mentioned. So it was a real pleasure and lovely listening to Cheryl. Thank you so much for being here and for taking the time to, you know, find out more and learn about this process. Best of luck on your journeys with finding your voice, and definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. And I look forward to either reading something or watching you do a video as well, where you share some of your story. And if there's one last message from me, it's just be yourself, whether that's speaking, whether that's writing, whether that's at work. Thank you.
Thank you. Well done. Yeah, so I should just finish off. Thank you for coming, and we look forward to seeing you in future events. And my parting words are, you are the expert of your own lived experience. If we're ever going to crack the diversity and inclusion piece, it's down to us. So let's step up and be the inspiration for others, and we will make a difference in the world. So thanks, everybody. Take care, enjoy the rest of the day, and see you again on another event soon. Bye.